The Ministry of the Presidency, in collaboration with the Ministry of Communities, is hosting on Thursday and Friday, July 25 and 26, at the Artichon Conference Center, the National Conference on Local Democratic Organs. With me today in studio is the Minister of Communities, the Honorable Ronald Bulcon. I'm Paul McAdam. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Now, this NCLDO, who's it aimed at, first of all?
It's aimed at the leadership of our local democratic organs. And these are, of course, our 10 regional democratic councils, or RDCs, our 10 towns or municipalities, and our 70 neighborhood democratic councils, or NDCs. So the leadership comprises the elected chairs and vice chairs. In the case of our RDCs, these would be regional chairs and regional vice chairs. In the case of our towns, would be the mayors and deputy mayors. In the case of the NDCs, it would be the chairpersons and vice chairpersons. In addition, the clerks or executive officers of all of those councils are invited, and these would be the regional executive officers or REOs, town clerks, and overseers, respectively. In addition, and to make up the complement of 4, for each of those 90 organs, we will have one representative or one councillor from the minority element of each of those councils to ensure that there is participation from all 3 sides, the majority, the administrative, and the minority.
Okay. Now, is there a special theme for this conference?
Yes, the theme of this conference is advancing national development through empowered and innovative local democratic organs in a green economy. Of course, this is the second such NCLDO that is being held, and it is coming exactly 1 year following the inaugural NCLDO, which was held this time last year.
Now, in terms of this issue of being non-cooperative or trying to, I wouldn't say sabotage the process. People who are going on that road, the officials, how can this affect their communities, basically? Because it's not just about them, it's about the people that they serve. How does this impact on them?
Absolutely. The ultimate victims, Paul, would be the residents in our various communities who are looking towards their elected leaders, towards those elected councillors to discharge their duties and responsibilities to allow for effective management of their communities, to take care of all of the critical issues, the environmental integrity of the community, the maintenance of playgrounds, street lighting, maintenance of roads, bridges, critical infrastructure, of course, solid waste management, drains, maintenance of drains and parapets. A disinterested council, uninterested council are handicapping themselves. It is only, we believe, through a respectful process of cooperation and collaboration and partnership with the central government that the concerns of individual or respective councils can be addressed in a meaningful manner. So it is lamentable, it is deplorable. We condemn this action on the part of the political opposition to encourage this non-participation and this boycotting of this important conference, and we condemn it in the strongest possible terms. This intimidation has extended even beyond encouraging non-participation by their elected councillors. It includes as well public officers, namely overseers, who are being encouraged not to attend, not to participate in this conference. I would like to take this opportunity to urge all of our public officers and even elected councillors who are part and parcel of the national political opposition that this is not the forum, this is not the activity that they should be staying away from, to encourage them to participate, to take advantage of this, if you will, hand of friendship that is being extended by the central government, this call for cooperation and collaboration, to take advantage of it, because it is your council that will ultimately benefit, and the residents of your respective areas who deserve the best possible leadership. So I not only condemn these actions of the political opposition, but I'm urging persons, elected officials and public officers to ignore these calls, not to heed these calls, but to take advantage of this opportunity, because it is the residents of your communities that will be the ultimate beneficiaries.
I want to ask you this. I know money is always a key issue. Resources are never enough in any ministry, basically, because we hear that all the time. Everything is finite. Does this affect spending of money in terms of doing projects? And does it extend to reaching out to your ministry for assistance with various projects within these communities? Or do they just try to go about it on their own? Or they don't do anything? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that you have elected officials. They're supposed to be working for the community. But then you have someone else who's probably not even in the community directing the show, or trying to direct the show. How does that work out?
Yes, that's a very important question you have raised. And without seeking to be too provocative or confrontational, I'd like to suggest to these officials that there could be adverse consequences to this attitude of non-cooperation. And herein, I'm referring to the annual subventions that are given by the central government to our municipalities and our NDCs. In the case of NDCs, the annual subvention has been increased by this administration from the $3 million that obtained in the past. That was first increased to $4 million, and then in the 2019 budget to $5 million annually. Now, this subvention is disbursed in two tranches. 50% at the beginning of the year, and the following 50% upon the certain performance criteria being met.
And I'm assuming that reports have to be made to show that work has been done.
The performance criteria would include the percentage of rates collected and effective and accountable management of the resources. It was the case that in 2019, there was almost in the cases of all the councils, they did not qualify for the full 50% of the remainder of the subvention. But what the ministry did, what the central government did via the ministry, with the approval of the Ministry of Finance, was to give the remaining portion that these councils did not qualify for, to be given to those councils as a grant, which, because this money was already appropriated. Because we understand that councils were severely handicapped in the preceding 2+ decades, and that their capacity had become so damaged and degraded that many of them were dysfunctional. And this process of restoration of capacity within councils is going to take time. And so we did not want to deny or deprive councils of the $5 million that was allocated at the time of the budget. But I don't think that they can assume that this forbearance, if you will, is infinite, and that if they're uninterested, then why should the central government continue to exercise this goodwill to you if you do not want to participate in this process, if you are showing no interest in serving the residents whom you have been elected to serve and to whom you have taken a pledge, an oath of office, that there's going to be a limit to our forbearance.
Now, have you gotten feedback, or officials from your ministry, have they gotten feedback, not from the ones who are trying to stagnate the process, so to speak, but maybe residents in certain communities who may see you somewhere and ask you, man, I'm living here, but we're not getting this anymore, or it's hard to get this. What do you tell them? If you know for a fact that maybe their officials are not being the most cooperative.
Yeah. Well, I can say this, Paul. It's a constant message that ministers and various public officials are being exposed to in our engagements and interaction with residents in communities all across our country. And there is a great degree there is a lot of sentiment in favor of seeking to not be as aggressive in our promotion of the independence and to respect the authority of local government, of local councils who are not discharging that commensurate responsibility. It is not a call and it's not a sentiment that has found favor at the level of the central government. We are committed to this process of restoring, well, first of all, respecting the authority of duly elected councils, democratically elected councils, and to continue to promote the, excuse me, the renewal of capacity and functionality within those organs. We are not, at that point, we are prepared to consider a reversal to the centralist mindset, to the central approach to governance, but we feel that these provisions in our constitution that allows for meaningful local democracy and local government are there for a reason. And we are not nowhere near the point where we would want to change course, but we are committed to working with councils, to promoting the message within communities that it is to these local councils that you have to look towards to provide the leadership for the management of your communities and to hold them accountable. In this regard, I was quite happy. I think it was just a week ago, I think it was Minister reported in the media that Minister Cathy Hughes, at an engagement in one of the newer NDC areas in Kurukuru, that a resident said to her that, Minister, we would, we're not going to bring our problems to you because we now have a council
in place
in our area, and we understand that it's the responsibility of this council to provide answers to the issues within our community. And if it is the case that we find the council is unable to attend to these issues, then we would expect the councils to engage the central government. So, yes, as I said, we are hearing this message about ineffective councils, but we are also aware that it is catching on that persons are beginning to understand that the management of their community is first and foremost the principal responsibility of their local council, and that they do not have to wait for a minister of government or the president to visit their community for them to benefit from resources from the central government and other forms of cooperation.
Has it been hard to get people out of that mindset? I know that obtained prior to 2015. I think we all know that. But in terms of, do you think the shift in change in thinking is coming?
It is probably not happening fast enough, Paul. I would be the first to admit and to acknowledge to that. What it means is that we have a responsibility to conduct a much wider sensitization and public education and information campaign to let more and more of our citizens come to the understanding and the recognition that you have to hold your councillors and your council accountable. The system as it is currently configured has approximately 1,200 councillors within those 80 organs, the 70 NDCs and 10 municipalities. Half of those, or approximately 600, are what are called constituency councillors. A constituency is a specific geographic area within that council, and it is only the residents of each constituency who are allowed to elect one person, woman or man, female or male, from within, who is a resident from that constituency, who would have that high honor of being the constituency councillor to represent the interests of that constituency. Now, persons there, each of those constituencies, there's a billboard littered in every constituency all across our country that was put there by GCOM prior to the the 2016 local government elections and updated,
those boundaries.
defining those boundaries. So persons cannot reasonably claim or feign ignorance as to what is a constituency, because it is there within the area that you live that you can identify what those boundaries are. But again, I will say that I would be the first to accept and admit that many persons are still trapped, captive in this mindset that developed over an extended period of time, decades upon decades, where persons only look towards the central government or the ministers or the president to be able to address issues within their communities. We have to move away from this mindset. We have to take advantage of the large number of persons who are elected by their residents and to unleash their talents and creative potential to be able to deliver leadership within their communities to transform the state of their communities. And many, I can say many councils and many constituencies are taking advantage of this opportunity of empowerment and are accepting this ownership. But it needs to happen quicker, and this is why this conference, being the second, again, is a manifestation of the commitment of this administration to continue along this strategic direction. And in particular, the objectives of the second NCLDO, in keeping with this strategic agenda that I've alluded to, which is to embrace effective local governance, and which is, of course, a distinct break from what obtained in the past, that the objectives are fourfold, mainly. And these are the first, number one, to provide an update on the implementation progress since the inaugural NCLDO, which was held 1 year ago.
Right.
Two, to review and prioritize the recommendations from the inaugural NCLDO 2018. Thirdly, to develop a plan of action to guide the implementation of the recommendations. And finally, to stimulate innovation through improved awareness on the role of local government in achieving local and national development. Now, last year's NCLDO was a one-day event. This year, it is extended to 2 days. So, the day one, the highlight of day one will be the feature address to be given by His Excellency President Granger. And incidentally, this initiative is an initiative of his. The entire strategic program of local government renewal is one that was initiated by President Granger, beginning with his accession as leader of the opposition in the 10th Parliament. So that will be the highlight of the first day. I will also be making an address that will deal with a little more of the nuts and bolts of where we are and where we intend to go. The first day will include panel discussions on local governance and national development, and will address the first and the fourth of those objectives that I've outlined. The second day of the conference will be devoted to addressing objectives 2 and 3, which are, as I've said, to review and prioritize the recommendations from the previous NCLDO and to develop a plan of action to guide the implementation of the recommendations. It is, again, our hope that despite the information that we have received of the plans and intentions of the opposition control councils, that they ponder carefully as to what could be the benefits to be gained from such an action, but rather that they have everything to gain by accepting this invitation from the central government, this offer of a partnership, and to, instead of an attitude of confrontation, to engage in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration, because they will be the real beneficiaries.
All right, now, we're almost out of time, but would you say your message to them is to put your people first and not politics? I think that's coming out of this.
Well, I couldn't put it better myself, Paul. One of the messages that I always try to leave with communities when I visit is that people must take politics out of the management of their communities. But you have expressed it in an even more concise manner and accurately. So we would like to encourage persons to, take advantage of this opportunity. It is our firm belief that the system has tremendous potential to transform communities from the bottom up. The ministry, of course, is engaged in trying to restore functionality to the system. And specifically, if I may just quickly allude to some of the actions and activities that we have taken in the past 4 years, would be first to refer to the holding of 2 local government elections to restore the democratic credentials of councils. It was in fact the first time in our post-independence history that consecutive local government elections were held as legally due.
Right.
That in itself is testimony to the sincerity of this administration. There's been the redirection of policy to decentralization from centralization, which is what had obtained, and one of embracing local democratic organs as partners in the development, the returning of power to local councils. We have extended, not only deepened the system, but we have broadened it with the addition of 9 new local democratic organs, 4 towns and 5 new NDCs, 1 in the Rupununi, 3 in the Pomeroon, 2 in the Soesdijk-Linden Highway, and 2 in East Berbice, 9 new councils. We have increased the financial and technical support to all of the councils. Again, as I have alluded to, we understand that the rehabilitation of this system is not going to be an overnight process. It's one that requires commitment, resolve, political will, which we have exhibited, that there's no silver bullet, but that we are convinced that over time, this system offers the best opportunity for better management of our communities. So what is required at this stage is for councils, as I've said, to accept this offer that has been extended to them of empowerment with a commensurate level of ownership. And it is when this partnership is in place that we will have more effective and better managed communities all across our country.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Thanks for joining me. And I just want to say, if you're watching, you were looking at a program where we look at the National Conference on Local Democratic Organs. It's on the 25th and 26th of July at the Arthur John Conference Center. And if you're an NDC representative or RDC representative, ensure that you participate and make your voice heard.